So, welcome back to Third Age Reforged, and to a battle that I've wanted to do for a long time, to be honest with you. I'm not in this battle myself, but every time I attempted to do the Siege of DOL Amroth in the past, someone either crashed or it didn't run to completion because of something. And this has been a map that has been around since 0.91 in some form or another, and this is of course one of WK's maps. In a similar vein to the Grey Havens, it's his magnum opus, as it were, in terms of his maps. And in my opinion, I do prefer DOL Amroth slightly, because the Grey Havens, once you're inside, it becomes a bit of a mad dash towards the town centre more than anything else. Whereas DOL Amroth is a little bit more open when you're in the streets, and also there are multiple points of defence that you can use once the attackers have overrun the outside, which in my opinion adds a little bit more spice. But even so, we'll have a look at the settlement first before we go through the army compositions. And if you have a look at how it's laid out, it is sort of a wedding cake like situation we've got going on here, where you've got three layers, the lowest layer of course, and then you have the middle layer past this wall, which can be used by archers. You can see there are archers in the distance over there on this big wall, which can make your life as an attacker advancing through them particularly difficult. And then you have the final layer up here, which of course there is a little bit less room to work with. Technically there's four layers, I suppose, if you count this little hill as leading up to the final layer, which is essentially just the town centre. But it is a fantastic looking settlement, I have to say, and I think that WK, he's put a lot of work into his settlements, and this one in particular I feel like deserves a little bit of extra recognition because of the sheer size of it as well. It is something to behold indeed. And now we shall go through the army compositions, and we'll sort of go through the intricacies of the map as we go along. That's a little bit more how it should be done. But how we have a second pink over here. To get my words out, it's pretty late in the day, to be honest with you. But I think I've fixed my game now, so hopefully I'll be able to join some of these now that I've actually got it working. But second pink has been sending me quite a lot of replays actually, and I'm very grateful for that, because it turns out that it's not as critical to keeping the videos flowing as I was fearing. But still a big thank you to him, because he's been a big help in the past week or so. And he is playing as Angmar. Angmar, of course, find themselves very much at home on the attack. And here, manning around, we have some Snaga Stalkers who are a little bit more high-res. I am using Reshade, by the way, and that might be a bit of a mistake, because I was doing a pitch battle earlier, and my frames had a heart attack when 4 Orc armies were in full flow, charging one another, but we'll see how this goes. Over here at the front, we have, well, near the front, we have some Witch Realm Blackguard as well, which is going to be the General's Bodyguard unit. Very, very powerful indeed, of course, in the sustained fight. Few units can claim to be their equal 1-to-1. And back here looks like we've got a big core of trolls here, which are going to be good for cracking through the lines. Some trolls of Gundabad, which are the more attack-focused trolls. The trolls of Angmar, which a little bit less attack on them, but I do think they have the greatest shield value of any troll that's currently in the game, which is kind of their main selling point. And then over here, I think he's got 2 units of the mountain trolls as well, so very troll-heavy indeed. Definitely a line-breaking situation going on over here. And he's also gone for more quality, which you are, you know, you can do that as Angmar. You do have a lot of quality options. It looks like he's got 2 units of Blackwatch Legion here at the front, so really defensive lines are going to be very ineffective against this Gundabad army. But he does pay the price of that by having next to no fodder, really. So a bit of a risk here. He's also got some Guardians of Kharndoom with their jet black armour here, and seeing as they're called Angmar now, it makes sense in a way that these Guardians of Kharndoom look like they do at the height of the Witch Realm. So they've of course got their upgraded armour, and so too have these 2 units of Witch Realm pikemen back here. So again, no rust over here. He does have a unit of Guardians of Kharndoom which do have their rusted armour, so sucks to be them. And then we can see some siege towers over here, and then we move on to the second attacking army as we hover over, and it looks like we've got an Isengard army, so Eclipse 2,500. And actually, if we have a look in here, you can see Uruk-hai infantry. You may recognise this unit model because it used to be for the Nazkai bodyguard, but it is now the upgraded armour model for the Uruk-hai infantry. Based on some natterings around the Discord, I do believe that the Uruk-hai infantry are not really thought of all that highly in relation to their peers, in particular elven units. However, the Uruk-hai infantry are still the workhorse of the central Isengard army, and their decent armour values will do you proud in a situation like this, where you have to advance through a settlement where you're clearly going to be under a lot of skirmish fire. We've got some Snaga skirmishers in here as well, and they've actually been given a darker skin model to represent the fact they are from Isengard. So again, that was Cowering Coma that did that. In here we can see the Uruk-hai crossbows, who actually have a new helmet model now to sort of tell them apart from the pikemen and the infantry, which is good to see. You can see that the crossbows obviously still a very big part of how Isengard do their business. Big ballista here, the Isengard ballista, several ladders. You can also see the classic Uruk-hai berserkers in there, so pretty standard overall as far as an Isengard attacking force goes. They've got the pikemen as well, so they've really got everything they need. And then they've got a few powerful units like the berserkers, and it's possible the Nazkai are in there somewhere. And yes, I think they are. There are at least some officer models in there, but it's hard to tell when the upgraded Uruk-hai infantry are in there as well. And then as we move along over here to the third attacking army, we have Darrow, or Darrot. I'm pretty sure that's Darrow. But nonetheless, we have Umbar, of course, the sworn enemies of Dol Amroth in many ways, so it certainly makes sense that they are here, the pirates. Corsair Savages, of course, very much against the usual Umbar philosophy of being survivable, but they do pretty decent armor-piercing damage, and they aren't exactly the most expensive unit to bring, so potentially very useful. And also some Belagai footmen for that survivability, so some decently armoured spearmen in the same sort of vein as the Gondorian spearmen, and then some Belagai archers again. The basic Gondorian units and the Belagai units share a lot in common, as you might expect. And then over here we have some Abrazanim Nadubawi without the upgraded armour this time, but they are still an incredibly tough unit to skirmish with. And that might be something that they can use to their advantage if they set up a skirmish force, even in one of the lower layers. The enemy archers might struggle a little bit to get rid of the Umbar archers as fast as they may like to. Some Corsair Savages are mixed in amongst them. We see the very nice looking Castamir's Legion, one of the finest frontline units in the game, in my opinion, but again, I've been limited to how much I can play 0.96 with the issues I've been having. Similar to the Guardians of Khan Doom. And then over here, our Pharazon the Golden, not Castamir, is going to be in a unit of these Harbingers, and they've got these like horns and these ornaments on their helms now. It gives them an almost samurai-like effect to their headgear anyway, but they are meant to be sort of demons in human form according to the lore, I think, but again, don't quote me on that. My Lord of the Rings lore is notoriously shoddy. And finally, a second Isengard army under the command of Napoleon, so we've got some Uruk-hai archers here. And again, they might be low tier, but the orcs can field a lot of archers like this, and they can really help waste the ammo of your opponent, and that might be what they're going for here, but they do need to be careful, because the defensive positions are still pretty extreme, even if you do succeed somewhat in what you're attempting. Also some basic Uruk-hai infantry. He's also got some sort of lower tier units in these Dunland Berserkers. The Dunland Berserkers are not quite as strong, I think, as the Uruk-hai Reavers as a shock unit. They are the lowest tier of Isengard shock troop, but they can still do a pretty decent amount of armor-piercing damage, but they are, of course, extremely vulnerable to arrows. Got some half-orc spear guard here. You don't see these guys too often, actually. At least you didn't in 0.95 because they were a little bit underwhelming. We'll see how they perform in this battle, though, because they are one of Isengard's. You know, having a unit that you can push through lines with is pretty decent, and Isengard do lack that in a way, other than their trolls. They're much more comfortable holding a line, in fact, with their pike line usually. Another unit of spear guard, of course. We've got more berserkers, so berserkers are a risk on a map like this, though, because they are quite easily shot down. But we shall see. If they get into melee, they can do some serious damage, especially if Dol Amroth are on the defence, like I hope they are. Uruk-hai crossbows and Uruk-hai archers, and at the back, I did see them a minute ago, we've got an Isengard ballista and a catapult, so artillery heavy indeed. He obviously intends to knock down the walls. And then his general is back here in a unit of Guards of Orthanc, which are, of course, multiple HP spears, difficult to take down, which in this sort of situation may well serve them very well indeed. Now, we shall have a look over here at the defenders. Now, this actually is a section of the city which probably won't be used all that much in this siege battle because of the way the deployment zones work. It looks as though Isengard, well, Napoleon is certainly best off waiting because of how they've deployed. But having a look over here, we can see the Gondorian Smith and Muro playing as Dol Amroth and Gondor respectively. And we can see over here that the Gondor infantry, they do have the first level of upgrades to their armour, so they've got the bronze armour upgrade. They can go up to silver, but of course that will run you a little bit of extra cash. Back here we have the Black Swan Vanguard. I'm a big fan of the Black Swan Vanguard, or I was in 0.95, because that extra armour-piercing damage that they can add to the front line is very, very solid, and they only cost about the same as a unit of Castamir's Legion or Guardians of Khan Doom. You can only have two before the cost increases, so it's not like Dol Amroth can feel the super-powered armour-piercing front line. 2 units of them. Very nice unit. One of my favourites for Dol Amroth, actually, the Black Swans. For Dol Amroth, I should say. I know that there's someone that always says that every unit is my favourite, but, you know, whatever. We have some Citadel Guard over here from Gondorian Smith, and the Citadel Guard are, of course, AP, a very well-known fact about the Citadel Guard, and this makes them much more deadly at holding the line, and unlike a lot of the lower-tier armour-piercing spears, like the Heavy Goblin Spears and the Southron Warband, they are good units in their own right when they are singled out, so they should be able to deal with low-tier units all day long. And we've got some more infantry over here, the workhorse of the Gondorian army. Several units of these infantrymen. And then as we have a look over here, we can see the Muro's got some Doran Ernil pikemen, and they have got their armour upgrade, I think, anyway. This is... yeah, they've got their plate armour, because they have the blue sort of... the blue... not tunic, but you know what I mean. I know the name for it, but I've forgotten. But the Doran Ernil pikemen will be a pretty good addition in this sort of defensive situation. Pikes and halberds have been separated somewhat, so pikemen will now outrange halberds as they were intended to. So potentially what they want to do is sort of counteract the fact that Isengard are here in such numbers, and obviously their pikes are going to be pretty deadly indeed. We've got some Etalond man-at-arms, which I believe are just the standard variant without the armour upgrade, but that's fine, they're still a very capable unit in their own right. Several units of Tarnostian Guard from Legate Lothus, so this is just a Gondor and DOL Amroth defence, that's pretty good to see. Tarnostian Guard here in force, of course they'll do the same job as the Gondor Spearmen. Potentially a very important unit here, the Nimrodel Rangers with their body piercing. If they can get into the right position, they're going to lay waste to the attackers. And then over here we have another unit from Legate Lothus, the Haven Guard, of course. Very, very powerful swordsmen, one of the most powerful in the games, with their almost Grey Warden-esque helms. And there's Imrahil. Having a look down here, we have the basic Thorin Ernil pikemen here with their blue uniforms. And then we do have some Etalond halberdiers, so while they may not trade very efficiently with pikemen anymore, against heavy infantry, that armour piercing will stand them in very good stead. But if there's one unit that's better than the Etalond men-at-arms than that, it is the Fountain Guard. They are the heart and soul of the Gondor army, in my opinion. They have been for quite some time, but the fact that they're armour piercing, two-handed spears, which just, they do work in melee, they are very, very impressive. And Gondor do sort of need them in a field battle situation, but in terms of a siege, they just add to Gondor's power. This is definitely where they're most at home. Pelargir Marines, of course, basic javelins. Over here, is this the Gondorian General? Doesn't look like it, but we do have a unit of Wardens of the White Tower on the field. Very, very powerful unit, of course, and then a couple of units of Tarnostian Guard and Thorin Ernil pikemen. In addition to these Gondor infantrymen over here, and more Gondor infantry, so a very extensive force down here, considering the fact there's no attackers arrayed against them, so they're going to have to reposition all of these men, including this catapult and these Thorin Ernil archers. But up here on the walls, of course, they were hoping to catch the attackers on the advance with these Athenian Rangers. Perfect position to shoot down into this section of the city, but of course the attackers don't intend to go this way, at least not yet. Ramas Ekor Garrison as well, very good in a skirmish fight, but up here they're just going to be able to do as much damage as any other archer, in addition to the standard Gondor archers with the armour upgrade. Tirithea Marksman, of course, a massive archer presence up on these walls, as you would expect in this situation, because it's just such a good position. Down here, meanwhile, Legate Lothus has got a catapult, several units of Etalond men-at-arms, and actually maybe a little bit thinner on the ground over here, so they might need to reinforce against an Isengard push. Muro's got some Talon Knights up on the walls, ready to move up. Tirithea Wardens, which are a tough spear unit indeed. And then at the front here, we've got some Etalond men-at-arms and halberdiers getting ready to form a V at this gate. In addition to some halberdiers near this wall, and some men-at-arms and some Tirithea Wardens. And some Blackroot Vale archers. I don't believe they're rangers anymore, which is probably a good thing. And then over here we have a token defence force at best of 2 units of Etalond men-at-arms. Maybe they forgot to move them or something, because it looks as though they were actually willing to surrender this part of the city. But regardless, I think I will make a slight cut here, because I imagine Isengard are going to wait to move in. I mean, the cut will be very small if they don't wait, but they'll also be slaughtered, I have a feeling. So we'll wait, and we will rejoin when the battle starts. So I think I will rejoin here, despite the fact that the manoeuvring hasn't quite finished fully yet for the attackers. But I'm not really sure if there was a gentleman's agreement in place or not, because they've both been taking pot shots at one another. You can see from here that there are attackers' corpses littering the field out here, and also the fact that a wall has been taken down, in addition to the fact that, of course, the attackers have somewhat moved in with some geometry out here to prevent them from moving out. And now you can see the ballista is coming in, trying to get some nice hits there on the Tirithea Wardens, and when they're densely packed like that, the ballista can potentially do a lot of damage, but it might be worthwhile saving that to try and make the attackers, or defenders I should say, a little less comfortable in their position. Some Guardians of Khan Dûm moving up. Few units in the Angmar roster anyway can absorb arrows quite so well as them, with their decent armour and shield values. We've got some more Guardians of Khan Dûm over there. There's actually a bit of a lack of siege towers over here, so I think probably though there isn't really a huge amount of wall, so based on the artillery that's over here, they'll probably just be content to knock down individual sections of wall and then use some ladders instead. We've got some Uruk-hai infantry moving up now to try and take the walls, in addition to these Guardians of Khan Dûm moving over here to this breach point that they've opened. Now, for the attackers, the plan is really simple. In most situations where you outnumber the defenders, you just have to accept you're going to take enormous casualties most of the time, but for the most part, you should be able to wear them down. If you look at the ratio of all the battles I've shown on 3rd Age Reforged when the defenders are outnumbered, at least 75% has got to show the attackers winning. The defenders, however, with the position they've got a lot going for them here. With rangers and heavily armoured archers up there raining death down on the armies, they should do pretty well for themselves. However, what it really comes down to is their targets that they pick with the rangers in particular. If they pick the right targets and use their ammunition at the right time, I feel as though they're onto a winner here, because this is a notoriously difficult settlement to take in the right, given the right balancing. And I think this looks fairly balanced, in spite of all of these trolls rushing forth. And mainly that's because obviously second pink has sacrificed basically having any form of fodder to have these trolls. He's got no low tier units that you can throw under the bus, so every unit has to be perfectly calculated. You can see these are at high infantry. That was a big one. I'm glad that I've taken the step of having effects on lowest, because it means that there's no lag when the walls fall down. It really is a godsend, that. You can see those giant ballista bolts sticking out of the walls. So these are going to, well, I say there's no lag, a little bit of lag. You should have seen how my frames had a heart attack earlier though, oh my word. Meanwhile, these Uruk infantry are going to be content to sort of take this area here, which is fine. And the Uruk infantry are a little bit better placed to deal with archers than most, and actually the defence over here a little bit unprepared, because now second pink is rushing forward with all of these trolls, and now it's going to be a bit of a desperate attempt to try and contain all of them. Because the archers aren't going to be able to deal with the trolls quite so easily. The trolls have got hit points to weather that archer storm, and in particular, stuff like these trolls of Angmar we get in here. I think I am going to just turn things down while things are getting a bit crazy here. Trolls of Angmar, of course, good armour and fantastic shield values for a troll. You just have to look at that giant orcish shield that they're carrying, and they're going to be able to deal some pretty significant damage to these Edelon man-at-arms, and immediately second pink also being very aggressive here, sending up his infantry to support. And the Guardians of Khal Doom aren't the easiest thing to get rid of either. And they do have to guard all of these choke points as well, so they can't just send all of their units to sort of block this. They need to keep hold of this breach here and the gate potentially, although there's no ram in close proximity, I don't think. So actually the gate is probably alright for the time being. These are high infantrymen taking quite a bit of damage, but you can see up on the walls, of course, these Tirithea marksmen firing away. And it's just these veterans of Osgiliath with their upgraded armour. That's got to be a pretty intimidating sight for these archers up on the walls, to note that their comrades in arms have got to fight a slew of trolls. But having said that, if they get rid of these trolls, that's a pretty big win for them, because that's where the majority of the fear from Gundabad's army is going to come from. They do still have the Blackwatch Legion, of course, which can still push through lines in the late game, which could potentially be very important as well. The Guardians of Khal Doom have got these like fur capes now when you upgrade their armour, that's pretty cool. The Blackwatch Legion are coming forward, but these Edelon man-at-arms are under-equipped for the task that they have to do here. Meanwhile, Darrow is still moving forward, as is Isengard, so they're going to be laying siege to this part of the city. So this part is going to be used, in fact. And that's pretty good for the defenders, honestly, because that means they can make use of that very nice inner wall and those firing positions from the archers. The ballista destroying their own ram. That's really unfortunate. Look at that friendly fire, though. Brutal. And these Snaga skirmishers, they are being very brave. Based on that blood spray that's coming up, it would appear that the Blackroot Vale archers are still rangers, which means just like Gondor, Dol Amroth can in fact field two. That's a pretty big boon for them in this situation, but they are running away at this point. And that's not something they can afford to do because of all of the assets that they've already committed to this fight over here. They need to try and do something. They need to do some serious damage over here now, because these trolls are just hacking away at the defensive lines. Those Edelon halberdiers, I'm not sure if Muro knows quite what to do, because this brutal initial attack from the attacking armies has caught them off guard a little bit, I think. And they've got only themselves to blame, really, because it was obvious they were going to bring down the walls, and they left that area woefully undefended considering the amount of trolls that Angmar had available to them. But having said that, if they can destroy these trolls, that takes away a lot of the teeth from this section of the army over here. Because if you look, there isn't really a great deal of reserves here. There's some decent infantry up by the gate. There's some Uruk-hai berserkers as well, but you know, they've gone all in, the attackers here, which is bold, but it looks like so far it's paying dividends. These trolls are really doing a very good job. The Tirithea Warns were sent in to try and shore up the line, but spearmen, honestly, they're not going to be the best thing to deal with trolls in this situation. You need high damage infantry. The halberdiers will do that to an extent, but their formation gets buckled too easily by the trolls. You can see now these Uruk-hai berserkers charging forth, and they're exactly where they want to be. The archers have got bigger concerns to worry about, so they're going to be able to get into melee with the heavily armoured Dol Amroth troops and do some nice damage to them indeed. And then we've got some Uruk-hai infantry over here, but Dol Amroth already running for the hills. Very unfortunate for Dol Amroth. I feel as though they wanted to put up more of a fight out here, but really blitzkrieg tactics here from Angmar and Isengard over here. So second pink and Eclipse 2,500 or 2,500 have managed to move forward. They do still have to go all the way around this part of the settlement over here, and in fact I will just turn the speed down, and they do have to sort of shimmy along the walls, but the archers also have some other concerns to deal with, because now perspective can shift over to the other side of the field. And we can see that Umbar have brought up their ram with their siege towers at the very least. So that's something. We've got the Belagai footmen and the Corsair savages getting ready to move in. But also over here it is going to be a little bit more challenging to break through, I would say, because the defenders are much more prepared over here than they were on the other flank. But having said that, they are still going to be probing with a lot of these units, and singular units of Gondor infantry are not going to be sufficient to deal with the horde of Umbar and they're coming towards them. If you're going to attempt to defend an outer wall that's as big as this, you need to commit to it. You need to commit a large chunk of your army, because if you don't feel up to it, you just need to let your opponent have the outer walls and retreat to a section like this and the inner choke points. There are other ways to go about it, and I do worry a little bit for the defenders here that they're going to try and hold the walls with individual units of these Gondor infantry, and they're just going to be overwhelmed, particularly when you look at the kind of units they're going to be going up against. Corsair savages, which admittedly these units are a little bit battered, but even so, you know, their AP damage, and also there's a lot of these Corsair warriors under normal circumstances, or Corsair infantry I should say. So I worry for this unit of Gondor infantry that's up here. They'll inflict damage, sure, but they'll also be overwhelmed by units that are cheaper than them, which the defenders can certainly not afford, particularly considering the calamity that has befallen their armies over here. You can see that these trolls are just relentlessly pursuing the retreating DOL Amroth forces, and Muro and Legate Lothus were caught with their pants down in a big way, because their forces are just being hounded back to the second layer, and honestly, that brings forth another problem, because if they lose all the way back to the second layer and then their other defence gets broken by the trolls as well, the defence on the outer wall on the other side is then imperiled, because Gundabad and Isengard, or Angmar and Isengard I should say, will then be able to flank around and destroy that defence as well. So the attackers are off to a fantastic start here. DOL Amroth, oh, that's a big loss as well. The catapult. These trolls, brutal. They have taken some substantial losses now though. The mountain trolls are all bloodied up and they've lost several units. The trolls of Angmar are nearly dead. But the trolls have done their job. They've done a fantastic job actually of just pushing DOL Amroth away from the outer walls. Very unfortunate, and looking at the army compositions, when they saw those trolls, they should have been ready for this sort of thing, DOL Amroth. Because a push like this, Angmar are capable of bringing a lot of trolls. But let's have a look over here, shall we? Because the attack, if the attackers do well over here as well, I really worry for the defenders. Victory seems certain for these Gondor infantry, but they have actually managed to break these Corsair infantry, and I think the arrow towers have got something to do with that. A decent amount of damage, especially to these Corsair savages. You can see that this gate is in fact open. The gates are relatively thin over on this flank, in fact. The ballista is over here. I think trying to sort of shoot through the gap, that's a bit, you know, I wouldn't recommend that as such. They've got a foothold up on this wall. I mean, if they shimmied these Belagir footmen along, or got them to engage these Fountain Guard from the side, they could get some skirmishes up here and then do some really nice damage. You see the Gondor infantry just sort of patrolling around. What is going on over here? So, for the time being, Umbar being relatively cautious, but they can afford to be, considering the good start that the attackers have had. And Isengard are pouring up onto the walls, and again you can just see the attackers leveraging their numbers, spreading their line all along the walls, and I don't think the defenders are prepared to sort of put the manpower in to defend these walls. I think, you know, you can tell that what they want to do is sort of fall back to the best positions, but if you want to do that now, you know, you should do it, because otherwise you're just going to lose perfectly good infantry units, and I do worry here. There is this, I think you can actually use this door to get up on top of the wall, so it kind of makes sense to defend this area. And you've got the Citadel Guard over here, and their AP spears, they should do pretty well against Uruk-hai infantry, to be honest with you. Now, let's actually go over and have a look here, because the tide needs to be slowed down here. Because now the trolls have actually sort of given way. What is going on back here? We've got a good defensive line being set up here, though. We've got Tirithea Wardens, we've got Edelon Halberdiers, we've got Black Swan Vanguard, that's a lot of AP. A lot of mass as well, and then you've got some archers up on this wall as well, Veterans of Osgiliath, Blackwood Vale archers as well, so you've got the body piercing, and I think they're going after the crossbows, which is a fine target in this situation. I mean, you may as well. If the crossbows get set up, then your defensive lines are going to be destroyed, and again, DOL Amroth, they seem to be just perpetually on the run here, which is a real shame to behold. It looks like they're actually going to reinforce with some Doran Ernil archers, and they badly need it, because if they can slow down and break Isengard's attack and slow down the attacker's momentum, they can claw their way back into this fight, despite the early game calamities they have suffered. And indeed, these Belagai footmen did come down off the walls and attack into the side of these Fountain Guard and Gondor infantry, but of course the Fountain Guard are going to dumpster these Belagai footmen in melee. back there. We've got some Abrazani Narduzagar. But this is the time to get some skirmishes up on this wall. They're getting some Corsair Savages up here, but I mean, to be honest with you, the Corsair Savages aren't really going to have much more luck than the Belagar Footmen. Their AP may do a little bit more damage to the heavily armoured Gondorian troops, but the Fountain Guard are just going to be far too strong. They need to get some skirmishes up here. It would be perfect. And also some Gondor infantry still here. Let's see how Isengard are getting on, because it looks like Isengard were able to take the walls without all that much opposition. And indeed now the Fountain Guard are kind of being surrounded by the forces that were up on the walls. Uruk-hai infantry and half-orc spear guard, and this is a real tragedy to see. The Fountain Guard being overwhelmed on both sides, and again, I feel as though this probably could have been avoided if the defenders had simply swallowed their pride and fallen back, you know, because they were clearly underprepared to... What the hell is going on here with my frames? Oh, I see, it's the wall. But yeah, they were clearly underprepared to deal with the attack, and they should have just fallen back, utilised these these choke points around here, and posted up their archers here and on the walls, and got the attackers to come to them. That would have been, in my opinion, that's what I would have done. It's what we did try to do in the battle that I first played on this map until someone crashed, inevitably. But you can see here the power of the Citadel Guard. They are just pushing back against this Gondor infantry force. And again, the AP spears proving their worth for Gondor, really defending their archer positions up here. The archers are firing. It's a little bit difficult to tell what they're firing at. You see, this is a big blob of Isengard forces, and Isengard here, there are a lot of good units here on the front, like the Wardens of the White Tower.
Our foe has taken control of the city.
The Tunnelstein Guard, however, are just spearmen, so they will need the support of these archers to do significant amounts of damage. And the Uruk-hai Berserkers and Dunlending Berserkers should fall to them. Uruk-hai crossbow, so second Pink's army, only half of it remains, although his army wasn't that enormous to start with, to be honest with you. But once again, the Trolls coming forward, burrowing into this DOL Amroth line. It has been relentless, but it does look as though Angmar's time in this battle is going to be not much longer, to be honest with you, because his force has been the vanguard of this advance. And now it's going to come down to Isengard having to try and short line. Let's have a look at the percentage of kills. The attackers have lost more, but of course, in the late game as time goes on, we have seen in the past that the defenders have started to fall back a little bit, and these Witchround Blackguard are coming in, so I do appreciate the fact actually here that second Pink is being very aggressive with his key units, because I think it has caught DOL Amroth off guard a little bit for large amounts of this battle, and they are also forcing these Doran Ernil archers to use their ammunition, and if there's no ammunition in the late game for the defenders, they will struggle. History has shown us this. These Doran Ernil pikemen, these Uruk-hai pikemen are coming forward to try and shore up this front line, because Angmar are at this point running out of steam. They will be able to do some more damage, but they really need the assistance of the crossbows and the pikes to make this advance stick, because the last thing they want is to fall apart now. Wow. There's a lot of red triangles still here on the outer defence, so I do give the defenders credit for defending the outer walls. I think they should have just committed more over here. But over here, the Fountain Guard, obviously, absolute champions on the front line. They haven't really lost much of anything. The Belagar Footmen, not a great unit to go up against them with, to be honest with you. Still no skirmishes up on the wall, which is unfortunate. But now the Castamir's Legion are marching forward. Now this is a lot of AP units, to be honest with you, which the Castamir's Legion will not relish fighting all that much. But they will at least do a little bit better than the Footmen and the Savages at staying alive. And there are also these pikemen. The Abrazani Narduzagar are an interesting pick as well. Interesting to see how they do. Ooh, we've got some crossbow Corsairs getting up on the walls now. That could be lethal. They do some pretty nasty damage with their projectiles indeed. Let's see how Isengard are getting along there. You can see over here another unit of Citadel Guard, slowly but surely pushing their way through from this side. They still don't kill particularly quickly, but their AP does mean they will inevitably kill armoured units, which is always nice. This Gondor infantry is pushing up onto the walls, but there are simply too many enemies for them to deal with. They are going to be overwhelmed ultimately at the hands of these Uruk-hai infantry, and there's also the Guards of Orthanc over here. There's also these Uruk-hai archers who've posted up onto the wall, shooting into the Gondorian position. This Fountain Guard held, despite being technically surrounded, but they are going to be continuously fired upon, I would believe. Definitely the sort of target I would go after. And all of these archers getting up on the walls, and the crossbows in particular, are going to be so deadly in a situation like this. You know, and even you can see down there the Athelian Rangers and the Wardens of the White Tower. Defeat seems a certainty, so Isengard will be victorious over on this flank, and then they can move to the aid of Umbar, and ultimately the attackers will be able to take this, but at what cost? It will be interesting to see how the defending archers do in this situation, because even something as lowly as these Ramasek or Garrison will get good kills throughout the battle. even against factions which traditionally do quite well under arrow fire, which all of the attacking factions actually have got the ability to withstand arrow fire quite nicely. See what's going on over here though, because this is a key fight.
The city lest we lose it.
So the attacking push is still going on over on this side, and the Blackwatch Legion pushing into the rank. You can see that the defenders have moved up the big guns to finally try and put a stop to this advance once and for all. The Handguard are in attendance. I believe there were also Talon Knights, and there were certainly Black Swans in there at one point. But you can see that it's still taken a real toll on DOL Amroth. These veterans of Osgiliath have been firing all the time. But Isengard and Angmar's attack on this side has been brutal. That's what I like to see, no messing around. These crossbows trying to fire into the flank, they've got a decent shot, so they may as well take it. And when you're attacking, you can't afford to be picky with what you use. It actually looks like Eclipse sent his men all the way around for a flanking manoeuvre. These Uruk-hai infantry, the upgraded Uruk-hai infantry, unfortunately they are up against Black Swan Vanguard, which are ideal for taking on a unit like this. The AP Mace is going to be very, very good in this situation. And also they're about to be reinforced by a unit of Edelon men-at-arms and also these Blackroot Vale archers. But it is drawing some attention off the other front line, so that's all they can ask for, I think. I love this city, it's so well put together. It's terrific. I can't wait for some more scenarios on it to be done as well. Because obviously the deployment zones sort of necessitate a pretty lengthy sort of moving around phase at the start, which is a bit unfortunate. Now, what's going on over here? Ooh, hello. They've noticed the crossbow Corsairs and sent up a unit of Gondor infantry, but they're already wavering. And also they're going to have to cut their way through Abrazani Nadubawi, and these guys might be skirmishers, but they are a very tough skirmisher to break down indeed. And the Gondor infantry aren't exactly known for their ability to kill things quickly. And the crossbows trying to get into those Gondor infantry, but another thing that they are going to have to be careful of, Umbar, is they don't take too many losses to the hands of these Fountain Guard. These Fountain Guard are still going strong. They've lost next to no men in their unit, and they're still killing away. Oh, hello. This was a unit I missed early on. Numenorian Shield Guard. The foot-based variant. We've seen the mounted variant several times at this point, but 2 units of Shield Guard as well. That's good to see. Those Fountain Guard have definitely put in a shift though. And these Citadel Guard are still fighting away, still slowly but surely killing that half-orc Spear Guard. What is going on down here? You see these Wardens of the White Tower are not going quietly into that good night. In fact, they're technically going to be victorious over here, which is amazing to think. But ultimately, I think the skirmishers are just going to sort of line up a firing squad and then destroy the Wardens of the White Tower. But the finest that Gondor has to offer, certainly doing a good job there. These Fountain Guard have largely been destroyed as well. The Guards of Orthanc going over to help Umbar, I believe. And yeah, there's another unit of Uruk-hai infantry, so the Wardens of the White Tower will ultimately be forced down. Meanwhile, these Citadel Guard just slowly munching up this Uruk-hai infantry still. Keeping units like this alive may well prove to be pretty important in the late game. A unit of 10 Uruk-hai Berserkers though. They certainly won't go down too easily. And now some Gondor archers essentially being thrown under the bus, I think, to slow down the attack. Actually, they turned around, but I'm not sure what the defenders want to do. I think what they are trying to do is defeat this attack over here and then sort of shift everything over to face Umbar and Isengard, but they might not have the luxury of doing so. I mean, there's these veterans of Osgiliath using their fire arrows. This is risky for the attackers here, because they could well break under this much firepower. Dora and Ernil archers also firing in. These are retreating Uruk-hai infantrymen. But really the destruction that has just been carved over here. Uruk-hai crossbows still doing their best to shoot. And now there's a lot of freed up men, so that push early on may yet come back to haunt the attackers. Their lack of fodder in many ways may well come back to bite them as well, because they had no choice but to go all in essentially, and they did, and they caused a great amount of damage. But ultimately their attack has been halted. So Gondorian Smith and his 2 allies, DOL Amroth here, Legate Lothus and Moreau, have managed to sort of take the sting out of this attack to a large extent, and they are going to be victorious over here, which then means, of course, there we go. It's all down to these attackers over here, and Umbar will be victorious over here, certainly. These Fountain Guard are good, but as soon as they're attacked in the rear, which they will inevitably be, this Gondor infantry is doing very well for itself. There's only 32 of them remaining, but I would still back the Abrazani in this fight. They may be archers, but there's simply way more of them, and they're also a pretty expensive archer to boot. These crossbow Corsairs getting into position. This Gondor infantry wants them. It wants to kill them. And they're going to be able to get there. This Castamir's Legion needs to stop them from... This crossbow Corsair would be a devastating loss in this sort of situation, because they're so damaging. They need to recharge these Vanguard as well, otherwise they're going to be able to tank out all of this damage, really. And these Numenorian Shield Guard just sort of biding their time and waiting. I don't know, you know, the defenders might have this simply because the attackers on the other side have run out of steam, and over here they're going to have to attack into a very nasty choke point over there. Definitely not the sort of assault you really want to be undertaking. Uruk-hai archers and the guards of Orthanc surrounding the Citadel Guard, but the AP on them will inflict a toll on the guards of Orthanc. The Uruk-hai crossbows could still play a pretty big part. Isengard are finally victorious over here, but at what cost? Look at the damage the crossbows did. I have to imagine this was mostly the crossbows. That Tarnostian guard. Brutalised. Now you can see over here, Uruk-hai Berserkers and some more Uruk-hai infantry recharging the Citadel Guard. They've taken some more losses, and now they're up against archers that are out of ammo. I don't know, I can sense a bit of desperation creeping in from the attackers here. Edelon Men-at-Arms, there's still that artillery as well. And DOL Amroth. Potentially a big player in this sort of situation, because if you can force a choke point fight, the catapult can be a grisly tool. Although the attackers, it looks like they're going to win over here.
Only half the enemy force remains.
I think the defenders could have won this side, but I think they're just sort of falling back, playing it a little safer. There are these Edelon Men-at-Arms over here, but honestly we've got crossbows. They probably wanted to get out of range of the crossbows, to be fair, which have probably enacted a heavy toll. Only 10 Haven Guard left, and the rest of them are really just Men-at-Arms and a few Black Swans, but these Witch-Realm Blackguard, not the sort of unit you want to be caught up against if you can help it. There's also some Uruk-hai Berserkers in here, and now the crossbow firing line getting ready. The Witch-Realm Blackguard trying to get out of the fight, I think. Maybe to sort of try and then overlap the Edelon Men-at-Arms, and they are just going to fight them one-to-one. There are a lot of these Men-at-Arms, to be fair, but ultimately it's going to be the crossbows here which are going to give the attackers the win on this side. But it's a very Pyrrhic victory, because there's not really going to be much that they're going to be able to offer to the attack in terms of flanking around, because really just a couple of units are going to be enough to keep that attacking force at bay. There goes a general. I think that's Isengard's general. Ooh, shot in the head by a crossbow bolt. So there goes Imrahil, or one of the Imrahils anyway. So yeah, the Isengard general over here from, who is this again? Napoleon, falling to the Citadel Guard as well. This Citadel Guard have been clutch so far. They've done a lot of work at keeping Isengard at bay in certain areas. There is this Isengard catapult, which again could be potentially very useful. A single good shot on the defenders, of course, matters a lot more than a single good shot on the attackers. The Citadel Guard over here, though. It's been a very slow process, but they are getting tons and tons of kills. Guarding that second way up. At least I think you can use this doorway up here to get up here. That might have been changed. I am not sure. Let's have a look at the defenders, though. Little Castamir's Legion and Abrazani Nadubawi. So they did finally manage to get their ducks in a row over here, and finally it looks as though the Fountain Guard have been dealt with, and the Crossbow Corsairs are still alive. So that is good to see. Now, one thing that you do have to be aware of, I believe... Yes, indeed. Where is it? There it is. You can see Muro's catapult has moved in, and it's going to be trying to shoot Darrow's army as he moves forward, and he is spreading out a little bit more now, which is definitely worthwhile. And honestly, if they can waste the DOL Amroth catapult's ammunition in this way, it leaves their own catapult completely unopposed to get right up next to the DOL Amroth front line. This is a difficult one to call, actually. Having a look at the percentage kills, it's still very close, and the defenders are still ahead in terms of the percentage of kills, but as history has taught us, generally speaking, the attackers will have the better of it in the late game, and a considerable lead is often required. These Haven Guard are finally going to be put to the sword by the Witch-Realm Blackguard, all bloodied up. I love the new Witch-Realm Blackguard model. I love the fact that they are a little bit more reminiscent of the Witch King. And these crossbows, are they out of ammo? They've got their blades out, so it's possible. We've still got some Guards of Orthanc over here, albeit very depleted. And it looks as though DOL Amroth is going to try once again. Well, it looks like he's actually just going to form up a front line with his Edelon Men-at-Arms, which is understandable. But he needs to be careful. He doesn't want to feed any more kills to these Witch-Realm Blackguard if he can help it. Honestly, just trying to overwhelm this position might be worth it at this point. We shall see. The attackers have certainly been bloodied significantly on that side at this point, but there's a lot of blue arrows on the map, and there's less and less red all the time out on these outer layers. Look at these Citadel Guard, though. They are just still here. That was the Guards of Orthanc. They are now routing, but they have just stood in the face of all of these units. And Isengard Ballista as well. That is a good point. The attackers went artillery heavy. Now is the time to see whether that will pay dividends. What have we got going on now? These Citadel Guard, there's 35 of them remaining. They're still going relatively strong though. There's a unit of 72 Uruk-hai infantry. Trying to mop them up as best they can. There's a routing unit of half-orc spear guard. Oh yeah. Looking back here, there is that bridge that leads to the town centre. I think, based on the fact there's units routing across it, that it is now actually functional, because there was a period in 0.91 and 0.95 where it wasn't. And I believe WK has fixed that with these Citadel Guardsmen that just still tanking away. It never rains but it pours on the south coast, which is a real shame, because I got the screenshot beforehand for this one and it was a lovely sunset. And of course the actual battle is raining, because we can't not have a battle in the rain when it's reforged. Umbar though, pushing up, doesn't feel the need to wait for his ally, and why not when you're feeling this confident?
They have lost half their men.
Abrazani Nardu's Guard, there's also some officers in there. I'm not sure if the Harbingers have come up just yet. I think they're still waiting back with the Numenorian Shield Guard, indeed they are. But even so, this is where Umbar's infantry will really come into its own. The Casimir's Legion and the Abrazani units are no joke in melee. And there's a lot of Tarnostian Guard here, the sky blue of DOL Amroth and their shields forming up another line. But ultimately the Umbar infantry over on this front is going to be of higher quality. And this catapult from DOL Amroth is going to be needed to shoot point blank into this line, I think, because the Casimir's Legion is going to take no prisoners. And even stuff like the Balagaya archers in support, you know, they don't go down easy. They're pretty tough for an archer unit, all things considered. They won't get that many kills, but they don't go down too easily. Meanwhile, some Nars Kai over here, so they were in the mix of Isengard somewhere. Only 16 of them left now though. Also these Witchround Blackguard, there's some Haven Guard in here as well from Legate Lockers, so finally, Second King and Eclipse 2500 are going to be destroyed. Finally overwhelmed by DOL Amroth, but my word, that initial blitzkrieg was very impressive. They essentially got from the gate all the way up to here in quick succession. Very impressive indeed. So they certainly did their part, and now it falls on their allies, the strength of Umbar and that Isengard artillery to try and see them through. Ramasek garrison archers. Those Nazkai will try and get their fair share of kills on these Echelon man-at-arms as best they can. But with the Haven Guard here, the attacker's fate on this front is sealed, and also they're trickling in sort of depleted units as well to try and destroy them. Meanwhile, looks like the defenders have sort of set up a... well, no, actually, that's just a bunch of depleted units. I was going to say, that's a lot of red in the town centre if they got another force. These Doranono archers still have ammunition though, which could potentially be a big factor in this battle. If they get up onto this wall and start shooting down into the Umbar forces, it could be huge. Gondorian Smith, however, coming to the aid of his allies over here, and the Tarnostian Guard would have been struggling immensely. Any support would have been appreciated, and the veterans of Osgiliath are a very accomplished arch unit in melee. They look fantastic with their upgraded armour as well, and there's Boromir in amongst them, fighting off against the Black Numenorians. Those crossbow corsairs though, deadly unit. Abrazani Nardu's Guard, Numenorian Shield Guard, and everything is just all over the place here. Some Castamir's Rangers as well. Umbar could definitely be the thing which swings this battle in one way or the other. That Isengard artillery is nothing to sniff at either. There goes the Horned Witch King. So finally Second King's army is being dragged down, it seems. Some Guards of Orthanc. Most of Napoleon's units, it seems, are crossbows. The skirmishers that are either out of ammo or maybe still have a little bit of ammo. But the artillery is really what he is bringing to the field in the late game. What's going on with this Citadel Guard over here? They finally got routed off, which does mean Napoleon does have some Uruk-hai infantry freed up. And there goes the other Isengard general. So, interestingly enough, our Farazon the Golden is the only attacking general still left on the field. That is what the defenders need, although they certainly don't need much in the way of friendly fire. Looks like they're going to try and destroy those Castamir's Rangers. Interestingly enough, it routs the Abrazani Narduzagar out, but not the easiest task. Umbar, in their higher tiers, has got some very high morale indeed. Castamir's Legion wants that catapult though, wants to destroy it. What's going on here? Those veterans of Osgiliath are not lasting too long in melee, I must say. The Castamir's Legion really showing their worth once again. I love the Castamir's Legion so much. Style is important. Let's have a look over here. So yeah, the defenders ultimately victorious. There's still a few stragglers left alive though. You don't want to leave Nazkai left alive, goodness me. There's one crossbowman that's still got some bolts to spare. But I think what they're going to try and do now is sort of plug up that one choke point, and that will be their hill to die on. I don't think they're going to retreat all the way back to the final layer, which is understandable. You know, they've got a decent defensive position here, and these Doran Ernil archers can get up on this wall as well and do some nice damage. This catapult, though, is doing significant damage to their own defensive line. And honestly, if these Tarnostian Guard rout, that's going to be curtains, because then the attackers will simply flood in, and the best choke point defense you have available to you in the situation that you've got, you will have given it up. Now this could be very interesting. Doran Ernil archers. Nothing to write home about as an archer, but in this sort of situation, in this sort of position, they will be able to inflict some nasty casualties. Deny Isengard their artillery, which Isengard spent an awful lot of money on. It looks like for the time being they're more than content to try and defeat the crossbow corsairs, which that's too good of an opportunity to pass up. They melt under archer fire, as you can just see, and they also are capable of dishing out an awful lot of punishment as well. Let's have a look at the percentages, see if they've budged. They are now even, so the attackers have pulled it back. Can the defenders hold fast? Because honestly, this Isengard army is not the scariest thing in the world. So it's going to come down, I think, to Umbar. Can they tank it out in melee? They do still have individually more units of quality than the defenders have, but the defenders do still have some Haven Guard, and they might have some Talon Knights hidden somewhere that I've missed. We shall see. We've got some Ramasekal Garrison Archers, Gondor Archers, not the cream of the crops, and Tirithea Wardens, but very depleted. How are these Haven Guard doing? Still 44 of them. So those Haven Guard are going to need to go toe-to-toe with the Harbingers. Well, having said that, the Harbingers are being targeted by archers, exactly what the defenders need to do at this point. There is our Farazon the Golden. What's going on here? That hit something important, didn't it? Ooh, Harbingers of Castamir losing a great deal of their unit models. Again, this catapult could be clutch, but at this point, you can see that these Castamir's Legion forcing their way through, and the only thing defending the catapult is a single unit of Ramasekal Garrison Archers, which needless to say are not going to be able to stand up to Castamir's Legion in melee. Decent armour and shield values for a militia tier archer, but certainly not the sort of thing that you're going to want to entrust your defence on. Now the Harbingers of Castamir getting into the front line. I have to say, I'm very impressed with these Tarnostian Guard. You know, considering their speed, just sort of more basic spears, they've held the line against superior Umbar infantry for quite some time. Having said that, Umbar didn't exactly have their most damaging units around, I suppose, but look at those Numenorian shield guard. I love that unit model, it's fantastic. Umbar style victors, in my opinion. They just look so nice. Ooh, gutted. So what will the defenders do now? Legate Loftus's reinforcements need to arrive at this point, I would say. Because this is all or nothing for the defenders, and I don't think they're going to have quite enough to pull it out. I think the quality of Umbar's infantry is just too strong, and the fact that the archers are doing their best, but I don't think they've got enough in terms of damage. The Doran Ernil archers are all well and good, but you can see that as soon as the attackers were put under a little bit of pressure from the ranged skirmishers, they pushed in as far as they could with their spearmen and pushed back to relative safety. Unless the defenders have a unit that I've missed, I don't fancy their chances, and there goes another bit of friendly fire, letting the attackers in. Umbar pushing through. One of the Isengard catapults is destroyed. A minor setback though, I would say. They do still have a ballista somewhere, and more fodder units are moving forward. This Umbar force though, the Harbingers of Castamir. They took a catapult shot and some range fire, but in melee they've been champions. There goes. As soon as I say that, of course, our Farazon gets his head taken off by a flaming boulder. I mean, I don't think that's going to affect Umbar too much, simply because Umbar's morale, generally speaking, is so high anyway. Especially considering the units that they've got left. And now the Tarnostian Guard routing and broken. More and more Isengard forces coming forward. And for the, well, For a moment there, the attackers were ahead, but while the percentages are even, well, within 1%, the attackers are winning now. But I think the attackers have got more individual units of quality. And the fact as well, which the defenders have kind of lost their defensive composure and their line has been broken. I do worry for them here. Numenorian Shield Guard. There goes the Gondorian General at the hands of one of the Harbingers. I mean, the Haven Guard are going to need to pull off a miracle here. They nearly did it in Moria about a month or so ago in the replay that I did there, but I think this is probably a bridge too far. In Moria they were facing off against orcs, whereas here they're facing off against elite Umbar infantry units. Umbar are finally going to get their wish, it seems, and they are going to capture DOL Amroth. The fall of the Silver Swan. Look at this up here. These Dora 9L archers have now run out of ammunition. The attackers have some ammunition still, and they are skirmishing down with those DOL Amroth troops. This was a thoroughly enjoyable battle. I'm so pleased that I've finally been able to show DOL Amroth. I've wanted to show it for so long. It's been out for a while. Since near enough the start of the year, I think. And ever since then, every time I played it, there was always a crash. Or the scenario, or whatever it was, wasn't ready. Finally we have this. Look at these Numenorians. Castamir's Legion facing off these archers who have run out of ammunition, drawing their swords, going in for a glorious last stand, trying to defend their home. But ultimately the Black Numenorians will have victory this day. The Abrazani are here. I think there are still rangers left alive as well. There are certainly crossbows, and those bolts will be sufficient to give victory. What's going on back here? There are still some blue triangles over here. And indeed, this is the price you pay for leaving those Nazkai alive, because they've been harassing these Tirathea Wardens, and it looks like they've reaped a pretty decent toll of casualties on this unit, considering there was only a few of them left. Fair play to Eclipse, 2,500. His army may be small, but his will is strong. And over here, the Uruk-hai infantry and the Harbingers just continuing the fight. With this, the Guards of Orthanc. Close range hit, so the defenders being given a taste of their own medicine. There is an air of inevitability about this fight at this point. And again, I think it comes down to that early game. The defenders, they lost a little bit too much from that brutal Angmar and Isengard push. Those trolls were used to very good effect, and again, the defenders still had the percentage advantage there, but as the defenders, you need to have a healthy percentage advantage going into the late game when you're outnumbered in terms of armies. Like, it's not uncommon to see the attackers overturn a 20% difference in these kind of games. Not on a fortress like DOL Amroth when it's this easily defensible, but it's happened in other siege battles, so it gives you an idea of how much you need to be winning by. DOL Amroth Castle actually managing to destroy one of the Isengard artillery pieces, and doing a decent amount of damage to those crossbows to boot. You know, looking around, you know, the defenders have had it. But I was thinking, actually, here at the front line, these Haven Guard have done work. Although looking at it, they are mostly up against the Numenorian Shield Guard, whereas the Harbingers have gone elsewhere, or have they been utterly vanquished? You know, those Castamir's Rangers. It's possible that the Harbingers have simply gone out of steam. They do have a tendency to do that. Now Isengard pushing forwards. It would be a quite remarkable comeback if DOL Amroth were able to do this. That Haven Guard is pretty bestial in melee. 4% now. I've seen stranger things, but not many. I mean, they still have these crossbows, and all it would take would be a nice rear position. These crossbows, unfortunately, aren't hitting their shots, which means they aren't really doing the most damage. All these Haven Guard, though. Fighting like champions. There are still some Harbingers on the front line, but indeed there are only 6 of them remaining, so the damage they took earlier on is telling. These Haven Guard. But over here, the attackers were victorious, and this gives them the license to either flank around or add more reinforcements to the front line. The Castamir's Legion looks like they're going to go after the Haven Guard. And I would send a flanking force around, honestly, because you don't want to just keep single filing into the Haven Guard, because they are having a field day at the moment. Back there you can still see those Tirathea Wardens. was a unit which was returning over here, wasn't it? Yes, indeed, some Gondor infantry, only 11. The defender's not giving up, though. It's very possible they could still win this. There's only a 4% gap, and they would need to lean extremely heavily on the power of the Handguard. There are only 27 of them left. And they need to hope that a good crossbow volley doesn't connect, but... you know, we shall see. Is that a Talon Knight, or is that just an officer? I think it's just an officer. Look at this. Brutal. Umbar being made to pay dearly for the capture of this city. Gondor infantry coming in, shaken and exhausted, but they're still going to try and fight. There goes Imrahil. That might be a fatal blow for the defence. That might finally be the thing which kills them off. Some of these lower tier units, these skirmishers that have simply pulled out their blades, might lose heart seeing Imrahil die. These units over here need to get into it, unless Napoleon has crashed or something, which is not uncommon in a game like this, but I don't think it will affect the result all that much. These Handguard, though, they've certainly lost their hit points at this point, but they've done an extreme amount of damage. Those bolts made the arc, they're still going to be pouring some damage into this front line. All of the units that aren't the Handguard are starting to lose heart a little bit as well, and if the Handguard are isolated, they will be destroyed fairly quickly. Castamir's Legion. Their curved swords facing off against the Handguard. This has been a really good fight though, start to finish. I'm glad that I could finally show off DOL Amroth, and I'm glad that I could finally do it with such a worthy battle as well. What is that? Is that a returning unit? Ramus, Ekel, Garrison Archers. Not exactly the heroes that Gondor and DOL Amroth needed. Their help will be appreciated on the front line, but I can't help but feel as though they needed something a little bit more heavy duty in order to withstand this torrent that is coming towards them. They still had the 3 Tirithea Wardens, which were accosted by those Nazkai. And indeed, they are now flanking around. So yeah, the Crossbow Corsairs and Uruk-hai Archers moving around to flank. Indeed. Yeah, the Guards of Orthanc are also going around, so this is going to be the end. Gondor Archers returned. They might have to be thrown under the bus just to buy the Handguard some more time. This was a really spirited defence, and if their initial defence wasn't wiped away quite so quickly, I feel as though there could have been something there. Look at this. Some routing troops. How many Handguard left? 16? Victory is a distinct possibility, or victory seems certain even. What heroes they are. But this is ultimately the final nail in the defender's coffin. These Guards of Orthanc coming around from the rear. Multiple HP spearmen. And also those crossbow corsairs as well, which presumably still have a bit of ammo. This is going to be it, and indeed a lot of the lower tier units are now losing heart, shaken and exhausted. The Handguard have fought valiantly, but ultimately they will be overwhelmed here. Chaos descends. We didn't get to see the final layer in action, but I think we'll have to wait for a scenario before such a thing happens, because generally speaking, I think the first 2 layers, especially if you decide to man the walls like the defenders did here, the first 2 layers are where it's going to be decided, because, as I said, you really do need to stack the walls if you're going to try and do that, and there we go, the Handguard routing off and defeated. Is that it? Why is there still 1,000 frames left? Is there still something in the town centre or something? Nope. Down into the cliff. I don't think so. There isn't really going to be much of a defence they can put up at this point, let's be honest. Oh, I see, there's 1 Gondorian archer. He will charge. He will be the last one alive. He's not a coward. He will face his death with courage. Indeed, the routing forces of good. I think he'll probably end up admitting defeat before the Gondor archer actually gets to the front line, though. Unless he gets shot by a ballista. That'd be interesting to see. Although it looks like they abandoned their artillery long ago. Is this how it ends? Not with a roar, but with a sigh. Yeah, it's going to be. I think he'll probably end up breaking before he ever makes it to the... yeah, there he goes. He wasn't feeling any of that. I mean, would you? I mean, it's only a ballista crew, but still. And there we go. Thoroughly enjoyable fight indeed. So, having a look at the kills, second pink getting the most kills. That doesn't really surprise me too much because of the contingency of trolls he had. And I think him and Eclipse did a... They may have been dead by the time victory had been won, essentially. But with how bold they were, they did do a very good job on that front. And they ultimately sapped a lot of the defensive resource. And I think a bit of panic happened amongst the DOL Amroth ranks when they realised that their defence at the front gate was just being crushed. The defenders ultimately did do a good job of pulling it back, though. I think they still should have probably stacked up a little bit more on the outer walls where Umbar and Isengard were on the other front if they intended to defend them. If they didn't, and probably what the smart thing would have been to do was when they saw they were losing the other front so severely against the trolls, they probably should have pulled back their army to the choke point that they ended up, you know, fighting it out in. Because then they would have been able to utilise their archers a little bit more efficiently, which would have led to more kills, of course. And then I think that they would have been in a better position to sort of support one another. And then they could have fallen back to the final layer if they so needed, which they could have done. This bridge is a very good choke point. They've got a hill on the other side, very difficult for the attackers to take. But maybe we'll see that another day. But having a look at the defensive kills, obviously, relatively even. Legate Lothus, I think he was the one that suffered most at the hands of the very aggressive push because he got the least amount of kills. But even so, let's have a look at how second pink did. The highest amount of kills on the attacking team, and I think he does deserve a lot of credit for how he chose to approach this match. A lot on the Witcher and Blackguard. They sat in the middle of that very grindy fight and got a lot of kills. But it was the trolls, really, and they didn't get a ton of kills each. I mean, the trolls of Angmar and the trolls of Gundabad getting a lot. Mountain trolls around the 100 mark each as well. But not as much as the Witcher and Blackguard, but they still were the key to the attacker's success on that front. But you can see how small his army was. He definitely went quality heavy, which is something you don't see an awful lot as Angmar. You know, when you think of Angmar being aggressive, you think of them just swallowing their opponents whole with their sheer numbers, and then they've got individual units of quality, not unlike how Mordor do it. But this was a new way of doing things, particularly in a siege. This was risky because he could have had his important unit shot to death very quickly, but he held up very well. And I have to say that I think the attackers approached this very well. But it was a very close one, within 10%, which is always a good earmark of how close it was. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, because I certainly did, and I hope you will join me for whatever is next.